Welcome to the Period Story Podcast, the podcast where we get behind some of the myths and misconceptions about periods. We chat with women about their period story, their first period, their journey ever since, and we open up a conversation to help break taboos and stigmas around menstruation. I'm your host, Lanice Brothers. I'm a yoga teacher and registered nutritionist specializing in women's health, hormones, and the menstrual cycle. I'm also the author of You Can Have a Better Period, the book Publishers Weekly calls an empowering debut, an informative, refreshing take on women's health. It's available from Amazon, Bookshop, and anywhere else you purchase books. Welcome to today's guest. I'm so excited for you to hear my conversation with Rachel Burgess. Rachel is such an inspiring person. She opened her own bridal boutique about 10 years ago, and she shares her period story, including the discovery of cysts on not just one ovary, but both ovaries. She talks about her surgery and how she was able to physically and emotionally deal with the impact of these surgeries and what it meant for her view of herself as a woman. Please enjoy this episode. I start each podcast with one question, which is, tell me the story of your very first period.
I can remember it, oh my goodness, so clearly in my mind. I remember going to the bathroom first thing, and I was about 14 years old, and I was wearing bright pink knickers, and I was like, whoa, what is going on here, team? And I remember having a little bit of a moment and thinking, what is this it? Is this what people have been talking about, a period? I think this is happening. So I remember running out of the bathroom, running along the hallway, and I'm kind of like calling my mother out of her room, being like, I think something's happening. And she was like, oh, you know those things I left on your bed a couple of months ago? You'll need those now. And I was like, okay. And that is it. And literally, that was my introduction to the world of having a period, okay, I'll go and find those weird pad things that you left on my bed and didn't say much about, other than you'll need them at some point. And so I remember thinking, okay, so how do these work? You know, like reading the back of the label and kind of going, what are these little like wing flap things that kind of go around? How does that all work? So I remember though thinking, and I've been really paranoid when I kind of put everything back on, of like, can people see this through my school uniform? I was really conscious of it, of going, can people see that I'm wearing a sanitary towel? And myself and my girlfriends, we didn't talk about it really, but I remember feeling slightly self-conscious to begin with. And then as the kind of week or couple of days went on, I kind of felt a bit like, I'm a woman now. Like, I am no longer a girl, I am a woman. And I kind of remember that kind of feeling then. I don't know, it felt like an awakening in that sense, that I've definitely come into a new chapter of my life.
Say more about this feeling of being a woman or becoming a woman and awakening. What made you feel like that?
So I guess I'm the youngest of all of my siblings. I was the youngest in like kind of our school year. So I've always felt a little bit like the little one, you know? And I kind of just had this feeling of, oh, I belong here now. Like I can do my GCSEs now because I'm a woman, you know? It was those kind of moments. And even though my period from that day was never regular, I was very lucky that it was never painful, but it was heavy, and she made herself known when she did make an appearance. I was like, okay, we're in this, and we were in this about 10 days, you know, it was never a short thing. And where I grew up, so my parents are farmers in mid Wales, and so there was a little store, like a little corner shop, I will say, but it wasn't on a corner. It was in the middle of just in little houses that I had to run across 2 fields to get to. And I remember thinking one day, oh my goodness, my period started, because it was never, like I said, it was never regular. We never had the same time every month, if it did happen every month. And I remember thinking, okay, at the back of my wardrobe, I've got these things, so I'll put them in my pants and I'll be fine. And then I remember it started. And I was like, oh my God, I don't have any of these left. So the next thing I know, my mother was like, I said to her, I don't have anything and I've got to go to school. She's like, I'll be back. And she runs across these 2 fields to the local shop, and they had them right high up, like above on the top shelves of anything. And so much so that the guy had to get his ladder out to go and get the pack of sanitary towels down. And then she kind of ran back. And even though she was so brilliant with that type of thing, she never really spoke about it. She's like, there you are. Like, that's what you need. But these sanitary towels, like the ones on the corner shop, I remember they were awful. Like, they were so thick and they was so uncomfortable. And just, I was so paranoid all day that they were just going to slip out or anything like that. And so I always then made a point of kind of going, right, whenever I'm in town on my own, I will go and get the good always sanitary towels. And that is what I will then use. But yeah, so I did get a little bit caught out with that type of thing every now and again.
To talk a little bit about how you learned more about your period and what was happening with your body, because you say you grew up in rural Wales.
Yeah.
And your mom gave you a pack of pads, but didn't really talk to you about what was going on. So how did you educate yourself about what was going on with your body?
So do you know what? I think I just learned as I went along. And because, like I said, we didn't talk about it, even though us girlfriends were really close. We didn't chat about I've got my period this month. You might hear it in the PE changing rooms. Somebody might go, oh, I'm in so much pain, I can't do this week. And I'm like, oh, why? And then I was thinking, should mine be painful? Or and then you hear people going, I really need some chocolate like now because of my period. And I'm like, oh, okay, is that something then that I will just have? Like when I'm on my period, do I do that I will have chocolate? You know, it's just, and I don't know why we didn't talk about it. I think it's a generational thing from my parents. They didn't really chat about it. So therefore, they're like, oh, well, we don't know. Whereas now I'm a woman in my mid-30s. I'm like, I love talking about this stuff because it's so empowering, because knowledge is power, right? And I really could have done with more of that, I think, at that age. So I wasn't academic in school. I was definitely there for the social side of things. So I was in the bottom set for science. So the moment you mention periods, oh my God, like it was hysteria in the classroom. Nobody, and the teachers, they were trying to keep us focused. They were trying, but oh my God, if you mentioned ovaries, uterus, womb, anything, I mean, the guys were just in floods of hysteria on the floor because they didn't know how to cope with the situation. So then I'm like trying to be cool, but then secretly going, I really want to learn about all this. Like, what does this mean? But then we were really taught about the biology side of it rather than the emotional side of it. And that is definitely something in the last couple of years I've kind of really delved into and noticing how my body is feeling. But that's because I've made a huge amount of changes within my life personally to really focus on that and become in tune with what my body's telling me.
So say a little bit more about what you did to educate yourself about what was happening, and also about the changes that you've made to be more in tune with yourself and what your body's telling you.
Sure. So basically at the age of, I think it was 16, I went on the combined pill, and I kind of, again, that was a moment of like, this is another level of me owning my body and taking that kind of empowerment side of things. And the pill gave me that opportunity to have a regular period or a bleed in that sense. And I loved being able to have the control of I did lots of horse riding and gymnastics and stuff like that, and kind of being like, I don't want to be on my period now. So I was petrified of, like in PE, from what I did GCSE PE. And there were, I think, about 6 of us, females, and there was about 40 males, and we had to wear leotards, and the guys didn't. And so I was absolutely then thinking, oh my God, is this the day that I'm going to come on my period? Is this the day I'm going to come on my period? So actually then I really appreciated actually having the pill, because it meant I could take some control, going, okay, even though I know I want a period, I don't want it now.
Mm.
And I stayed on that for a very, very long time until my early 30s. So that was my education in a way of kind of thinking, okay, I'll take control. I have this pack. I follow it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I have a week off so that I can have a bleed, and then I'll start again. But I went for a routine scan. I had a hip operation, and so they were just doing a little routine scan on that, and it brought up that there were actually some dermoid cysts making a little home on my right ovary. And I was like, right then, what does that mean? And it meant having my ovary surgically removed. So I think I was about 25 maybe at that time when that got removed. And that was quite a big kind of conversation. They said they would like to have a chat to myself and my partner at the same time, that if we were thinking about having a family, then these are things that we need to consider. And all of a sudden, like, you're sitting down, like having a glass of wine, thinking, well, we need to talk about, are we going to do that? I don't want that. But then when somebody's saying that decision might be taken away, well, hang on a minute, I want to be in control of that. But luckily, we're both very much on the same page with that isn't in our little life plan that we've got mapped out. I say mapped out. We'll see. Have to go with the flow with all of that. Yeah. And yeah, so I had the operation, I had the ovary removed. And then after that, I was like, why am I putting this pill in my body? Like, I need to give my left ovary a chance here to kind of start seeing if she can create this period for me naturally. So I then came off the pill, and I looked at how I was living my life, and it was very, very unhealthy. I ate convenience food. I was a theatre stage manager for a very long time, so I was away on tour a lot, which meant you would have your evening meal after you do your evening show. So you'd go out for a curry about 11 o'clock at night, and then you'd have quite a few drinks, and then you'd stay in bed until midday the next day. Then you'll get to the theatre and you'll do a matinee show. So it was very much like, and then you'd eat a bag of Haribo throughout the show to keep you going, because you need the energy levels. And then there's always snacks there. A lot of drink was involved. And I thought some things here need to change. So at the age of 30, I became completely plant-based, and I adopted a plant-based diet. I haven't drank now for 2 years. And that has from taking all of those almost allergens away from my body, I've become more in tune than ever. And my body speaks to me now what it needs, and I listen to it, because it's not constantly in a fight or flight kind of situation, I find. So yeah, and I started moving. I never moved before. I got myself a pair of trainers, and I just every day just get out, because I have a body that can move. So I just want to see what it can do. I want to keep listening to it, but I want to fuel it with that. With like, I want to give it that opportunity to thrive.
Yeah. So you've been on quite a journey, and quite a transformative one.
Yeah.
What did you use to educate yourself about what was going on? So, having an ovary removed is quite a big deal. And it sounds like, you did get some aftercare from the NHS or whoever you had it done. But then what happened after that? Where did you find out more about what was going on, and how did you educate yourself?
So podcasts have been really, really useful. I've also did quite a bit of reading up, because a lot of people were kind of... I actually kept it very private, to be honest. I didn't talk to a lot of people about it, because I thought... Basically, I named them both. So I named them Olwen and Olive, because it was much easier to talk to my father about the fact I have ovaries. And if I was like, I have an Olwen and I have an Olive, and Olive is completely going, and we're going to keep Olwen. And he's like, right, cool, that's all I need to know. Tidy, great, thank you. So I didn't really speak to many people about it. I told my girlfriends after the operation, just so you know, I've had this removed. And that was my own way of controlling things. And that was my own way of, I didn't want people to worry, because as soon as you start to say to people, I have some cysts on my ovary, you can see their reaction was more than I was trying to protect them. I'm like, it's okay. This is all right. Like, this is in control. We're going to be all right with this. And I just didn't want any of that. I kind of just wanted to park that, go in and have the surgery, be in recovery, and heal as fast as I can, and then explain. So I've just been through this situation. Afterwards though, it was pretty tough. Like, I remember, but they were hoping to go in through my belly button, but unfortunately the cyst was so big, it was 11 centimeters. So they actually ended up going in. I have a C-section scar at the top of my bikini line. And so they went in that way, and I ended up with like 21 staples across my bikini line afterwards. And that was painful, like even just trying to sit up and sneeze or anything like that. And anybody that has given birth, I applaud you that have had a C-section, because I do not know how you hold a baby when you have that, because I couldn't even lift up a cup of tea. Like, you're phenomenal. And so the aftercare that was great, but I had to go to the doctors to have my these staples removed. And unfortunately, I think whoever was removing them hadn't looked at my notes correctly, because part of the procedure meant basically inflating my stomach out so they could do what they needed to do. And so I was incredibly bloated, and I was wearing very loose fitting clothes. And she saw that I had this C-section scar and said, "Congratulations, what did you have?" And I was like, "Oh, no, babe, you want to read your notes?" Because I didn't. I've actually had an ovary removed. And to me, that's okay, because I'm not planning a family of my own. But to somebody who is, 50% of that chance has been taken away from them. That's an incredibly emotional process for them to have to deal with. So I was like, "Oh no, you want to read your notes on that, because that isn't actually what's happened." But healing wise, it took me quite a bit of time physically after that. But I also, like I said, my diet wasn't in the best place then. And I definitely think I was fueling it with the wrong things. So much so that 2 years ago, when I went back for another little routine scan, just making sure Olwen's okay, they noticed that dermoids were starting to grow on her now, basically. And I was like, "Oh no, here we go again." So I went in, and do you know what? It was on one of the boutique's birthdays, actually. So I was like, okay, what a way to celebrate the boutique, turning 8 years old, me going back in surgery. But I went in, and they were hoping to save half of it. We managed to save 30%. So I now have 30% of Olwen left. But I have to say, my recovery from that, I was out on the same day, and I was back running 10 days later. And I had the same procedure. They went along the same scar line again. But I have to say, like, I can't emphasize enough, the person who I was when I had that first operation, and the way I ate and the way I treated my body, to the person who I am now, I can only put that down to the lifestyle that I lead now being so quick in comparison to before, where I was in hospital for 10 days. I was out on the same day this time. But that was also my partner was brilliant. The hospital food wasn't they had a little bit of a freak out moment when I said I'm plant-based, and they didn't have anything that they could kind of get me, but that was okay. My other half came in, and he just brought in all this fruit and all this veg, and I just sat there, and I just hoofed it all down. I can literally feel my body just going, "Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. This is nutrients that can help heal me here, but not just heal the internal operation side that's been going on, but also heal me with hormones, and just help that really."
So you've been on quite a journey with regards to your reproductive health. And you talked about healing, physical healing and emotional healing. Was there ever a moment where you felt like you needed to mourn what could have been, or what, even though you have said that having children wasn't in your plan, did you ever feel like you just needed to have a moment of mourning?
Most definitely, yes. Especially after the first operation. For a good few months, I would say, actually, that I felt quite angry. That why is this decision been taken away from me? Even though I knew I didn't want that, I wanted to have control of that decision. And of course, then everywhere you look, it just felt like everybody had children, or everybody was having children around me. And it was at a time where I remember saying, I don't think I'm going to go down that route of having my own children. People would say, oh, you'll change your mind. You'll change your mind. It was definitely in that category. And I was like, well, even if I did change my mind, I'm actually not sure what the chances are here. Anyway, team. But I definitely went through that mourning phase, and almost a bit like my womanhood, like these organs make me a woman. I love, identifying and being a woman, and I love my body and what it can do. But having, that taken away from me definitely felt like, does it make me less of a woman? Am I less of a woman in that sense? So I had to work through that. And even now, there are times like when people talk about their cycles, I get so envious because I can't identify with that because I don't have that. And since my last operation, so that was about, we're in 2022 now, aren't we? Yes. So that was about 4 years ago then. No, 2 years ago, sorry. And there's been, I didn't go back on the pill after my operation so that I could see what or when the last 30% of her can do. Like, can we have a period naturally here? And no, not at all. So, apart from, I get so excited about this because I've just had my first ever period in 4 years, and literally this week. Yay. So I'm celebrating that. So that's really exciting. Yay! Although I was like, oh my God, what do I do again? I need to remember. Sorry, I've completely digressed. So if I go back and just explain, the lead up to the last operation, I came off the pills so that there were no of those synthetic hormones in me as such. And then I never had one afterwards. So we've been working that way. To kind of work out why I wasn't then having a period. And I found it really, so I found like I maybe couldn't get involved in some conversations that were happening online or within friendship circles about, I'm at this stage in my period, because I couldn't identify with that because I don't know, because I wasn't having one. And I was like, but I want to know what my spring, summer, winter stages are. I want to be able to understand that. But I could feel emotionally when I was getting tired, when I was getting a bit exhausted. And I thought, well, maybe that's something to do with my cycle, but I'm just not having the bleed, until this week.
That's so interesting that you really wanted to participate in those conversations. And also what you mentioned earlier about you felt as though you may have been less of a woman. And this, I just find it so fascinating, this strong identification that many of us feel and experience when we have our period, this sense of womanhood. And then when it gets taken away, and, we most typically that will happen when we are going through menopause, that how that can shake the foundations of how we identify ourselves. Because you hear people say, well, just because you're having a period doesn't make you a woman. People will say that, but that's not how many of us feel, and you've articulated your feelings around that so brilliantly. So talk a little bit now about how, if this has changed the way you feel about yourself with regards to your womanhood, or how you reconciled these changes in terms of how you feel identity-wise.
Sure. So I've come to terms with I love my body now more than I ever have done. So I've come to terms with, yes, I don't have these organs as such, these reproductive systems. But what I do have, oh my God, she's amazing. What she allows me to do. And I love the way that, I can just turn it on, do a Pilates class, and I might not be able to do what a lot of the people are doing in that from my own physical, like I need to stretch out more, my hamstrings are really, really tight. But I have the privilege to turn up on a yoga mat, a Pilates mat, and move my body. And so I've started loving her from that. So I've changed my outlook around from what she can't give me in that sense to what she bloody well can give me. And that's just that is so, it feels so peaceful and so empowering a lot along the same lines. Like even just this morning going for a run, it's never easy going for a run, but afterwards I'm like, oh my god, my body just did that, this is incredible. And I'm surrounded by phenomenal women in the boutique, and I just think it's so, every person is different. Every person holds themselves differently, but if we start celebrating who we are as women, then and stop thinking about the things that we would change, or I feel sad about that, or I wish I could do that, or something. No way, look at what we can do. That's what we've got to change. That's the way that helped my mindset. Instead of what we can't do or what my body can't do, let me show you what I bloody well can do, though.
I love that so much. It's rather than focus on what you don't have, focus on what you have, focus on what you can do. I love that. That is so empowering. I just want to transition a little bit and talk a little bit more about your business and your transition from theater manager to now bridal boutique owner.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
So I always knew I wanted to have my own boutique, but I thought it might be something that I would do in my kind of 40s, not when I was 24 when this happened. And I was like, okay, but you just got to go with it. Otherwise you'll never know. So myself and my partner, we moved here to Penarth, which is a lovely seaside town in South Wales, about 10 minutes outside of Cardiff. And we went round to our next door neighbours one evening, and this is when I was drinking quite a bit, and I had a couple of glasses of wine, a bit too much. And I said, do you know what? There's a shop in Penarth that I walk past every day. And if it ever comes up for rent, I'm going for it. I'm going to open my own bridal boutique that champions handmade in Wales. And I'm going to do it. Anyway, I got back home and my other half was like, wow, Rach, you've never said that to anyone before. And I was like, oh God, did I say too much? Like, oh, well, nothing will ever come of it. It was a gift wrapping service beforehand. And I think people of Penarth love to have their gifts wrapped beautifully. So I was like, well, that ain't going to go anywhere. I then went back out on tour with Hairspray, and my next door neighbour sent me a text and said, this is about 2 weeks later, sent me a text and just said, oh, Rach, I hope tour's going well. Just to let you know, I've walked past that shop in Penarth and there's a sign on the door that says it's up for rent. So I've knocked on the door and here's the landlady's number. And she would say she'd like to meet you when you're back in a couple of weeks' time. Right. Okay. This is not what I was expecting, because I had other contracts lined up beforehand to take on afterwards, after Hairspray finished. And I was like, right, okay, well, we're just going to go with the flow here, team, and just see what happens. And I remember it was the 12th of May, 2012. It was London Olympics year. Awesome. And I was walking up and I was on the phone to my father, and I was like, what do I do? And he's like, Rach, just trust your instinct. See how you feel. There's no crime. Like, just go, just meet your the landlady, then see what happens. I walked in, it was at 2:00. And yeah, I left at 2:30 with the keys. And then I launched in October of that year. And I didn't have any designers. I'd never had any retail experience, business degrees, nothing like that. But I just knew that if I don't give this a go, then I'll never know. And I think that's probably a little bit how I feel about my body. I'm like, well, can I go and run an ultra? I don't know. Let's give it a go. Or can I become plant-based when I grew up on a farm? I don't know. Let's give it a go. It's that kind of thing. And so that evening I went back to the show and I just said to a friend of mine, Jojo, who's on the wardrobe department, and I was like, Jojo, I've just got these keys for a place to open up a bridal boutique that champions handmade, and I really want to champion handmade in Wales, because I've been a bridesmaid 10 times and I'd been into my fair share of bridal stores. And I kind of just found that when my girlfriends didn't know what they wanted, they got pigeonholed into categories of kind of saying, this is what a bride should be. Yet on a day-to-day basis, we dress with to represent who we are. Well, this is who I am, or I have tattoos, or I have ear piercings, or I dye my hair a certain color because this is me. Whereas then when it came to the world of bridal, it was almost like, well, you've got to conform. You're a bride, therefore you must wear this. And you must pay thousands of pounds for an item of clothing that has been mass produced abroad. You have no idea where that's come from and where. And I'm a big believer in voting with your money. And that's the one thing that we kind of have power on. So she said, oh, you need to meet my friend, who's a designer. And I emailed that friend. I looked at her website. I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. But I sent her an email and I had like a bounce back saying I'm away traveling. And I was like, oh, I bet she's just gone traveling. Like I'm going to, she's not going to be back for a year. Anyway, Helen emailed back and she's like, I've just got back from my travels. Should we have a meeting? And then the rest is history. So when I first launched, I had two designers. So I had Helen and I had Claire Hill, who was an accessory designer. Now we have 10. We have 10 designers now. And the boutique is going to be 10 years old itself in October of this year. And oh my God, it's the best thing in the world. I absolutely love it. I love who I get to meet every day. And it's just incredible to see how many people want to just do bridal their own way, champion handmade, vote with their money, but also find an outfit that absolutely empowers them. Like, damn right, this is me. I cannot wait for the world to see me. I cannot wait to exchange my vows wearing this number. Oh, it's a joy.
Wow, you have such an amazing story, and you tell it the way you tell it. It just, you make it seem like, it just feels like everything was in the right place for you.
I hear you. I know it's bonkers, right? Like you've got to create the life you want to live. That's all I can say. And I think there are a lot of people who are unhappy with things. Well, then take control and change it. I know that's really easy for me to say that, but I've been through those hard times. I've been through those challenges. I've been through those surgeries. I appreciate it. It's easier to say than do, but my God, there's no point looking back thinking, what if I could do that? What if I did do that? What if this job is making me so unhappy? Oh, then leave it. Something better is out there. Make it happen.
What would you just say to someone who's listening to this and it was like, yeah, I hear you, something better is out there. You've got to create the life that you want to live. But they're really scared. They're really, really scared of taking that next step. What would you say to them?
I think good things happen when you're scared. I think being safe is dangerous in that sense. And I think I can only speak from my own experience, but if you never know, you will always think, what if? And I think that is a danger zone.
Wow. Amazing. Like, just the bravery in your story and the bravery of what you've done on so many different levels is quite inspiring. So I know that listeners they'll hear your story and they will feel really inspired, and they might make changes in their own life, however big or small they might be. If listeners want to get in touch with you, find out more about your business, maybe find out if they're a bride or an upcoming bride, find out how they can use your services, how can they get in touch with you?
So, firstly, thank you so much for your lovely words. That's really, really thoughtful. I do not see myself like that at all. Just, I just see myself as a very, I have a little simple life. Every day on Instagram, I post like a little what I do each day. And it always starts with movement. And then the breakfast, like, they're the best meals of the day, right? Like, amazing. And I will never miss a breakfast. And that is a morning ritual and a routine for me. And then I'll come to the boutique, and then I'm in bed by 9 o'clock in the evening now, team. Like, I'm definitely not rock and roll or anything like that. I just enjoy that pace of life, really, shall I say. But sorry, if people wanted to get in touch, oh yay, always email. That's lovely. So all the information's on the website, which is rachelburgessbridalboutique.com. I'm on Instagram, Rachel Burgess Bridal Boutique, so you can find me on there as well.
Great. Thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your story. I know that the episodes where you have someone sharing a really personal story of the changes in their menstrual health, or are always the one that do really well, and I get really great feedback on them. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for creating a space that I've never really spoken about this. But when I came across your podcast, it felt like a space where I can talk about this. And I just want people to know that, do you know what, women at the age of, between from my first operations to now, we do go through this, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't make us any less of a woman now, team.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For more inspiring conversations, head over to periodstorypod.com, where we have so many more for you to peruse. If you want help with your menstrual or hormone health, email me on hello@eatlovemove.com to set up a free 30-minute hormone health review. If you like today's show, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Tag us, come say hi, and send in your requests for who you'd like to see on the show on Instagram and Twitter on @periodstorypod, or email us at hello@periodstorypod.com. I'm Lenise Brothers, and you've been listening to Period Story. Thank you so much for listening.